Hey folks, in this entry we'll be taking a look at Adrian Griffin from the 2020 film The Invisible Man. An egotistic, devious, and sadistic sociopath, Adrian is the villainous result of what happens when you take a slew of disturbing character flaws and combine it with the ability to not be seen. Given that he spends most of the film in an invisible state, much of what we know about Adrian comes from his girlfriend Cecilia's testimony of him. From her account, their relationship appears to be marked by one significant trait, namely that of manipulation. Cecilia is akin to a prisoner, commenting that Adrian was a control freak who sought to dictate what she wore and ate, and even down to her controlling her thoughts and facial expressions. Needless to say, this abusive relationship took a toll on Cecilia, as evident by the dark circles under her eyes, signaling adrenal fatigue from chronic stress. But she's not the only victim of Adrian's manipulation, as it seems that everyone in his social circle is affected by this in some measure. Adrian's brother Tom also comments on how he was controlled by him, and that his true genius was his ability to get into people's heads and push the right buttons. Ultimately, this all points to a key attribute of Adrian's, a narcissistic personality disorder. This narcissism is expressed in a need to dominate others and a distinct lack of empathy, combined with little regard for the feelings and needs of others. As with all narcissists, Adrian has an unhealthy view of himself, in which people are objectified and simply a means to serve his purposes, while he remains selfishly concerned only about his own needs and wants. But you wouldn't think it when you see him at first glance. When we do encounter him in a visible state, at face value, Adrian comes off as innocuous and even shy. But this pleasantness is merely a facade that gives a deceptive feeling of safety while hiding the monster within. This narcissism reaches its pinnacle when Adrian's ego is bruised, when Cecilia decides to leave him. The amount of fear and paranoia that Cecilia undergoes in her escape attempt is again another testament to the abusive grip he has on her. In his prideful state, Adrian cannot accept that he has been abandoned. As his brother mentions, no one has ever left him before. It might seem that Adrian's attachment to Cecilia is solely out of the insecurity from being dumped. But it appears that he does have some genuine feelings for her, albeit filtered through his narcissistic view. For instance, the passcode he keeps at his lab is the day that he first became acquainted with her. Also, based on his brother Tom's recount, so far all the women in Adrian's life have been aligning with him only for his money. Cecilia is the one bright spot amongst all of them, the only genuine relationship he's had. Given her rare character, it's natural that he would have an emotional attachment to her. But what is not natural are the extreme lengths he goes to win her back. A normal person in his situation would realize that he deserved to be dumped, and then try to make amends by earning the forgiveness of the offended party. But due to his narcissistic disorder, this method completely eludes him. Thus far, Adrian has mainly been guilty of being a toxic and abusive partner. But what unlocks the full extent of his evil is his invention of the invisibility suit. There is a certain loss of personal identity when one wears a mask and their face is hidden. This loss of identity then makes it easier for one to commit heinous acts that they would not be capable of when their identity was known. If that's the case for someone wearing a mask, then its effect is surely tenfold for someone wearing an invisible suit. The ability to do whatever one wants without being seen, combined with a pre-existing narcissism, proves to be a dangerous combination. In Adrian's case, it quickly degenerates him into sociopathic behavior, or in clinical terms, antisocial personality disorder. In his attempt to win Cecilia back, Adrian displays a sense of sadism in his acts, ranging from stalking her and inflicting psychological torture, combined with the lack of regard for human life displayed by the murders he commits without a thought. Not even his brother is spared, who is manipulated into serving as an extension of himself by participating in his crimes. To cap it off, Adrian presents her a binary choice: to return to him or face a lifetime in a mental institution. The fact that Adrian believes that he can win Cecilia over in such a devious manner is a testament to how out of touch with reality he is. When all is said and done, he attempts to sweep all his crimes under the rug by pinning them on his brother, but eventually he cannot help but claim credit in hinting that he was the one responsible. At their dinner scene, there is a notable element that can perhaps shed some insight on Adrian's psyche. Adrian comments that his hands have a tendency to shake, something which only Cecilia has had the opportunity to see. Of course, there is a myriad of reasons as to why a person's hands may shake, ranging from low blood sugar to excessive caffeine intake. But for Adrian's case, it's suggestible that the shaking of his hands is correlated with some form of social anxiety, expressed in an emotional neediness for Cecilia. Adrian's narcissism also lends support to that anxiety, as deep down, although it may seem otherwise, people with narcissistic tendencies actually deal with a lot of insecurity and issues with self-image. This insecurity likely has its origin in a feeling of insufficiency or having no control over their situations. Hence, the narcissism and its accompanying manipulation are an overcompensation for the anxiety, and as a means for taking back the loss of control. As the saying goes, it's an attempt to make yourself taller by cutting off the heads of others. We don't know Adrian's backstory for sure, but given the strained relationship with his brother, it's likely that there were also other issues in Adrian's upbringing with his parents that resulted in the perceived loss of control and insecurity. Broadly speaking, perhaps he grew up in a highly competitive family environment, where acceptance was conditional on his performance and humiliation was served in generous amounts in the case of failure. At present, Adrian is also in the cutthroat industry of emerging technology, where feelings of insufficiency may tend to develop in the midst of fierce competition. And in the current position of influence he is in, due to his achievements in his domain, it's likely that he would have no shortage of bootlickers and grovelers under him who would serve to perpetuate his already established pattern of narcissism and manipulation. But whatever the source, Adrian's behavior is the expression of a weak man pretending to exhibit strength. You might be able to manipulate someone into serving you and perhaps even given the appearance of actually caring for you, but you can't be surprised when in the end it leads to a transactional relationship, one that is doomed to fail. So overall, Adrian's manipulation was the result of his narcissism, or the need to feel in power. This need arose from a feeling of insufficiency or insecurity, which was caused by a perceived lack of control over his circumstances. But as to what these specific circumstances entail, that is the question of the day. At the end, Adrian receives his just desserts, but it came at a cost, requiring Cecilia to step out into the shadows herself. Given the situation, perhaps there was truly no other choice in order to escape his grasp and to finally have peace of mind. If she were to stay or run, history would likely repeat itself, and she would soon find herself in his clutches again.